Some call it hippie crack. Teens call it whippets or buzz bombs. I'm talking about nitrous oxide.
It was an addiction unlike anything else I had had before.
I really didn't think that it was that dangerous because you could get it like anywhere.
You wound up paralyzed from the waist down.
Your body is literally dying. All of your nerves are dying.
Why it's way more dangerous than people think and what everyone needs to know. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we're talking about a potentially lethal drug that can be purchased at gas stations, smoke shops, and online. Some call it hippie crack. Teens call it whippets or buzz bombs. Chefs use it to create foams and whipped creams, while doctors and dentists use it as an anesthetic. I'm talking about nitrous oxide. You may have even had it at the dentist office. But tonight we're talking about a shocking truth about the legal $36 high that seems to be trending on social media and sweeping across the nation. How your children are influenced, why it's way more dangerous than people think, and what everyone needs to know. Now, Rachel began using nitrous oxide at parties when she was 23 years old, and it wasn't long before she was inhaling up to 6 tanks of nitrous oxide a day. And Rachel, frankly, you feel like you're lucky to be here tonight. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, that's a really fair statement. That's even an understatement.
I really appreciate your willingness to talk about this because I think it can save a lot of people some serious suffering and perhaps some lives. You said you first tried this at a party when you were 23. Did you have any idea how dangerous it was when you first tried it?
Yeah, like it was explained to me that it like kills brain cells and, obviously doing anything like that was out of character for me. But yeah, at first I just kind of thought it was dumb. It's really short. It wasn't something that was super common. I was bartending. And around that area, a lot of people were using them. EDM music scene, kind of, so.
Let's go back to, as somebody told you this will kill brain cells. Whenever you drink alcohol, everybody's always said, this will kill brain cells when you drink alcohol, right? So this wasn't like a dramatic statement when you first heard it, like this will kill some brain cells, but so does alcohol. So what did you say to yourself about it the first time to give yourself permission to do it?
How could something that lasts such a short time be that harmful? And it's something that they use at the dentist's office.
Yeah, okay. I'm so glad you said that because I've heard that from people that have done this the way you did to begin with when they say, hey, they give this to you at the dentist office, so they're not in there killing your brain, so how could it be doing this to me now? So was that part of your reasoning?
And why would they be selling it at stores if it's harmful? I mean, obviously with alcohol, but you're accepting, as an adult that, okay, I'm deciding to do this. It might not be the best thing for me, but there's no way that it's like the upper scale drug or something that I could get heavily addicted to.
All right. So what was your reaction to it? How did it affect you the first time you used it?
It made my head buzz. At that point in my life, alcohol had a pretty strong hold on me. And I didn't think much of it. If it was around and somebody purchased it and I was around it, sure. But I was never something I was going to buy on my own.
Okay. But now you said you had some issues with alcohol, but you had stopped drinking in January of 22, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And was that hard?
Yeah. I was up to about a bottle of Tito's a day. So, and I quit cold turkey. I wasn't aware that, there was dangers to that. And that was really difficult lifestyle changes. Coming out of kind of the mess I made. And for the first 6 or so months, I was really, really good. I struggled with a lot of mental health that I ended up getting diagnosed with. And then, yeah, I didn't really ever seek treatment for addiction or go to any groups or anything like that. And so I found that I was kind of transferring addictions with different substances.
Okay, and this is when you started to experiment with nitrous, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah. I had,
you did some ecstasy?
yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but I have done a few different drugs. Yes.
Okay. But it was nitrous that got a real strong hold on you, correct?
Yeah, which was bizarre. Like to me, it was bizarre because it's such a short-lived. I mean, they're expensive. Like it was, and it was an addiction unlike anything else I had had before. Like the almost immediate need to go get another one when you're finished is like something I can't explain. And as an alcoholic, I'm, very used to the constant thought of wanting something, wanting it now, always wanting it. But this was different.
And you said that you had had some mental health struggles. Were you diagnosed with a particular disorder? And if so,
Yeah,
what?
so I'm diagnosed bipolar, borderline personality disorder. I have CPTSD, ADHD, and generalized anxiety disorder.
Okay. And did this have a calming effect on you when you used it?
Yes, yes. And I obviously, being an alcoholic, benzodiazepines are not a good option for me. They are not, yeah, they are not. And it's because it fires the same receptors in your GABA receptors that alcohol does. And so you have an even more high chance of getting addicted to it. So yeah, I had always not liked downers when I was drinking because I was drinking. And then when I stopped drinking at about 6 months, I had kind of I had a manic episode. I took Lexapro not knowing I was bipolar, and it sent me manic. And at 6 months, everyone was talking about how sobriety is the best they've ever felt. And for me, I was 110 pounds, like going to the hospital every other week, having panic attacks. And so once I got diagnosed, it was a lot to cope with, like a lot. Like I kind of thought the bipolar diagnosis was the worst thing that could happen. And then when the borderline diagnosis came, I was gutted.
Well, I'm really sorry that you had to deal with all of that. And then you add this onto it, that creates a real problem. And you said this got expensive for you. How much did you wind up doing in a day, and how were you paying for it?
I was bartender at a club, and I had worked there when I was younger. So, I mean, everybody knows me. And not to talk myself up, but being an attractive bartender at a club like that, you make a decent amount of money. And so, yeah, I mean, I call myself the best functioning addict until I'm not. I can make anything work if I really want to live that way until I can't. So, yeah, I was spending probably around $180 to $200 when I was using 6 to 8 takes. They're about $40 a piece. I mean, at that point, the workers everywhere knew me and they were giving me deals.
Well, we're going to talk about what happened when you got up to that level, because Rachel says after years of abusing nitrous oxides because it filled her time and made her feel calm, she ended up paying a severe price. And we're going to hear more about that right after the break. Poor sleep impacts productivity, focus, and energy, making it difficult to tackle daily tasks effectively. Tossing and turning through the night leaves many feeling drained and unmotivated. Beam's Dream Powder offers a solution. This science-backed healthy nighttime blend is clinically shown to improve sleep, helping users fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up refreshed without grogginess. Dream combines powerful, all-natural ingredients like reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin, creating a blend designed for consistent, restful nights. It has become an essential part of nightly routines for those seeking better sleep. The ultimate sleep refresh for the new year. Try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Dr. noom.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil for up to 40% off. A little over a year ago, Rachel considered herself sober because she didn't think inhaling nitrous oxide was harmful. Now, Rachel, let's talk about this. This is a 640 gram canister, or you call it a tank, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And this cost how much? This size?
$40.
This is $40?
I was living in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Yeah. I've heard they're more expensive in Denver.
Okay. So at the worst, you were using 6 to 8 of these a day?
Yeah, I think my highest number was probably 8.
Okay. And there's a apparatus that goes on the top of this and allows you to inhale it directly, right? Or would you use a balloon or would you use it directly?
So, depends. I mean, it's a nozzle that screws on. It's a little plastic nozzle. I personally just hit it from the tank. You have to be careful to not angle it at any sort of way, kind of upwards, because it can shoot freezing cold air down your throat, which has happened to me. That's why people use balloons. They also use the balloons because you can blow the air in and back and in and back, basically taking oxygen from your brain more and more. So you're breathing in carbon dioxide and you get higher.
Right. And you say the more you used, the more poisoned you became. You passed out after a while, right? Just completely lost consciousness?
Yeah. Right. Like I would just wake up and they, like, people that I was doing them with would, tell me that I had passed out.
Okay. Now, was there something that triggered you to use this more heavily? I think you said you'd been through a breakup. Were you medicating with this?
Yeah. So what's common with bipolar people is that medication kind of stops working randomly. And with medication changes, I definitely have more of trigger to use. And with relationships and having borderline personality disorder, there's a lot that goes on. So it is kind of, I have tumultuous relationships, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was having a lot of issues with just a bunch of stuff. I got bartending at a bar I used to work at. And initially when I got sober from drinking, I was working in a restaurant and I stopped working in bars because I couldn't separate my life. So when I started working at this bar again, I was around similar people and I made the decision to start using it. And everything since I stopped drinking has had a much stronger hold on me because I did not go completely sober. I just stopped drinking.
Right.
So I was still using other things.
Well, let's talk about what went wrong when you had a bad spell from this nitrous. Your hands went numb. What all happened when it got really bad?
Yeah, so I had been like falling and just weird thing. And when I fell, I hit my elbow. My hand was going numb by Easter time. And it felt like it was asleep. And then it started kind of going down my arm and like kind of my leg. And I was dropping things. And it was just really weird. I had bartended a 9-hour shift, was like kind of fine. But people thought I was like, there was people saying to me that they thought I was drunk. The next I fall asleep. I wrote a paper that night. I fall asleep. I wake up and it feels like my hips are broken. And I like can't go to the bathroom. And I'm like, what? So I freak out. I call 911. They take me to the hospital. And at first they just thought it was muscle spasms. I didn't tell them about nitrous because I had no idea that like that could be causing whatever was going on. And so they sent me home they sent me to go get medication from the pharmacy. And it was like for muscle spasms and something else. I, at that point, was wearing sandals. When I got out of my Uber, my shoe had fallen off and I had not felt it. I get these medication. I go to a smoke shop next to my pharmacy, grab another tank, hitting it. I have a friend reach out to me and says, please look up the case study of nitrous poisoning. I go look it up. I'm sitting in bed. I like instantly started bawling. I'm like, oh my God. And it's saying people are paralyzed. They can't, I'm like, he's like, I'll take you to the ER tomorrow morning. By the time I got to the ER, I had to go, they were walking out with a wheelchair because I lost so much function of my ability to walk that like I was falling over. I told them that like I have nitrous poisoning, you need to run my blood. Within 30 minutes of them doing that, I had about 7 people from neuro in my room and I was admitted.
You say nitrous poisoning. Let's take a look at the nitrous oxide misuse health risk, because I want people to know, because you were a classic case of this. There's short term, there's oxygen displacement that can cause asphyxiation. Your brain's not getting oxygen, which can result in brain damage or death short term. There's loss of blood pressure, which can cause fainting and heart attack. And then long term, you've got a vitamin B deficiency, and you can have irreversible neuropathy and paralysis. A psychological addiction can obtain, depression, anxiety. You can have neurological blood-related complications, frostbite, which results in tissue damages, which is why you mentioned people use balloons sometimes to regulate the pressure. And all of this was coming true with you. And I'm so glad that somebody really brought this to your attention. If you notice, folks, when we're talking about these long-term consequences, they are serious and can be life-threatening. And we're going to add to this conversation a former nitrous oxide addict who says a knock on the door from unwanted visitors may very well have saved her life. You'll see that this can happen, not in isolated cases, but using it heavily like this can be so very dangerous, which is why you need to know this. We'll be right back. Well, we've been talking to Rachel, who got into a situation of actually nitrous poisoning. And I want to add to the conversation Jenna, who says she started using nitrous oxide for fun. Now at 25, Jenna has been in rehab 4 times for her addiction to inhaling what many believe is just commonly called laughing gas. You get it at the dentist sometimes as a anesthesia if you're having a procedure done. And Jenna, you've been listening to what we've been talking about so far, right?
Yes.
All right, good. So what was it about nitrous that made it feel harmless to you when you first started using it?
Well, I started using it just with friends for fun. I really didn't think that it was that dangerous, So I didn't really think it was a big deal. I thought it was mostly safe because you could get it like anywhere.
And you could, right? You could get it at a gas station or a smoke shop or really a lot of places. And, both you and Rachel said, hey, you can buy it anywhere. They wouldn't let that happen if it was that dangerous. Did that go through your head as well as Rachel's?
Yes, it was like that, I guess because it was so accessible. And I mean, the people that were selling it over the counter, they knew what was happening, So when they were selling it to me, it's not like they were like, oh, be careful, it was just like buying a vape.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. I'm not a big fan of that either because of what that can create with your lungs. But
yeah, it was like they were excited to see me coming.
Yeah,
almost.
I'll bet. I mean, these things are expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Jenna, what did you pay for yours? Rachel was saying it was like $40 for the smaller canisters.
Yeah.
What were you paying?
So for those tanks that you showed, they were about $45 here in New Orleans, but I quickly upgraded to the bigger tanks, which ran at about $100. They were maybe twice the size of that one. And so that they had like a strap on it to where it would make it easier to carry because it was so heavy. Mm-hmm. So those were more expensive and I was buying them like constantly.
And how much were you doing in a day, Jenna? How many of these larger tanks, like 2,000 gram or whatever, how many of those were you doing in a day?
It started off with maybe like 3 big tanks a day, but at the worst, I was up to like maybe 10 of the bigger tanks a day, all the way up to maybe 16 on a bad day.
Oh, wow. So this took a lot of time, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I couldn't do anything without it. You know, I felt like I couldn't function without it. And anytime I was sober, the only thing I was thinking about was going to get another tank.
Yeah. And so people have an idea. If you're talking about a whipped cream can, for example, that would do maybe 3 cups of whipped cream, that's got 8 grams in it. And then the size that I'm showing here is 640 grams. That would make 153 cups. And then the larger tanks that Jen is talking about are 2,000 grams, would make 500 cups of whipped cream. So look, when they're selling these, they know what they're doing. They don't put a carrying strap on these because they think somebody's putting them on a kitchen counter. They know what you're doing with it. And did anybody ever discuss with either one of y'all, did they ever mention sudden sniffing death syndrome or the likelihood of psychological addiction, or that this could cause permanent neurological damage? Were there any warnings posted anywhere you were buying this or on social media? Did anybody ever give you a red flag about this to either one of you?
No, never.
No, the friend that told me had told me to slow down, and the friend that told me was doing some illegal stuff. He had a lot of experience in a lot of different things, and he had seen a lot of stuff. So he was the only person I had ever heard of that mentioned that it could like harm me. Like, honestly, I mean, it was more so that you were just going to be stupid if you did them.
Yeah. And Jenna, you never had an issue with drugs or alcohol before nitrous, just occasional recreational use, right?
Yeah, so I did struggle a little bit with addiction, but I think that it was actually made worse by the nitrous because, you know, as an addict, I saw the nitrous as a loophole because it doesn't show up on drug tests. So it allowed me to use it without, like, basically flying under the radar. Nobody would know. And so that was the draw for me. And, you know, it got bad really quickly. After I started doing the big tanks, you know, I couldn't be stopped. Like, in order for me to stop doing them, I would have to be like physically removed from it. Because that's how powerful it was once I started.
Yeah.
And it got really bad. I was in a really dark place.
And you wound up paralyzed from the waist down. Actually, both of these women ended up in the hospital, and we're going to talk more about that right after the break. $36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today. Well, I'm back talking to Rachel and Jenna, and the first thing you'll notice in talking to these young women is how intelligent they are. We're talking about bright young women here, and they wound up with an addiction to nitrous oxide. Now, when I say addiction, as powerful as it is, it's a psychological addiction. It's not a chemical addiction, it's a psychological addiction, but it is so powerful that it can overtake your life, and did with these two women who both wound up in the hospital both suffering neurological damage. And there are things that can happen. You can get frostbite from this when you're actually using it, but it can wind up causing neurological damage. And Jenna, you were actually paralyzed from the waist down, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Whenever I was at my lowest point and I was doing the most nitrous, my parents sent like a wellness check, the police, to come and check on me. And basically they determined that I was unwell and I went to the hospital. And in the hospital, my condition got rapidly worse. I was paralyzed from the waist down for maybe a couple weeks. I was hallucinating while I was coming off of everything, and I couldn't do anything on my own. I couldn't bathe. I couldn't use the bathroom. I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything by myself. It was really scary, I'm sure, for my parents and the people who love me. But through it all, I still had the cravings. I still wanted to do it, even though it had damaged me so much. I still couldn't get out of the thought cycle of just wanting it.
And someone even brought you a tank in the hospital, according to your father. Is that right?
Yeah, so it had such a strong grip on me that I was doing anything I could to feel that feeling again, because of how bad the addiction was and how easily it was to get it.
And Rachel, you were headed the same way. You were saying you couldn't even tell when your sandals fell off your feet. You couldn't go to the bathroom. It was when you said your hips were really, yeah, you said your hips were starting to hurt, and they thought it was muscle spasm, but you were headed in the same, that's her paralysis from the waist down. Your hips starting to hurt was the beginning of exactly that same thing for you, don't you suspect?
Yeah, I was having they looked like seizures. They were muscle spasms from my nerves just dying, that it was so painful. I would be yelling out, just tremoring. Your body is literally dying. All of your nerves are dying. It's same. I was able to go to the bathroom, and then when I was in the hospital, I lost function of that. Lost function of everything. Yeah. And I had already relearned how to walk. I had a whole knee surgery and played college lacrosse. So this was the second time I had to relearn how to do everything. And to be honest, I was sitting in the hospital, remembering that I had told everyone, if anything gets any harder for me, pull the plug. And I'm sitting there thinking, there's not a plug to pull. I did this to myself, and they didn't give me you're going to walk again. They didn't know. It was the scariest experience of my life.
I hope people are listening, because the path you both went down, Jenna says after a month she was left in a wheelchair and had to move in with her mother. It's that bad. Both of you went down the same path. And remember what I said at the top, folks. You can walk into a gas station and buy this. You can walk into a smoke shop or a corner store and buy this stuff. Doesn't matter how old your kids are, they can do this. So you need to be aware of this and watch out for it, because this is scary stuff that your kids can get their hands on. And we're talking about a lot of this stuff getting promoted on social media. We've got a graphic that shows nitrous oxide cans, because I want to point something out. One of the pictures shows nitrous oxide cans after a concert. It's actually in the center on the bottom here. So this is an actual picture, and that's how widespread this is. And take a look at the picture on the bottom right of your screen. These things are given names and bright colors to attract young people to them. This is a vending machine where kids get candy, and they can put money in a vending machine and get this out and use it. So, it's insane to me that this is going on. And it was insane to Jenna's father as well. He was so angry about his daughter's addiction to a legal product that he worked to change laws in his state. So now retail sales of nitrous oxide are illegal in the entire state. That's how upset he got about this, and we're going to add him to the conversation when we come back. Jenna's father, Greg, says the fact that his daughter was battling an addiction to something that you can buy legally at a gas station made it that much harder for her to kick her addiction. And think about that. It's not something that you have to go to a dealer to get. It's not something that's illicit. You can just go down the corner and buy it. Greg, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here.
How did you find out Jenna was inhaling nitrous, and did you even know that this was a thing?
I didn't. I guess when she was around 19, 20 years old, we found a small CO2 cartridges in her car. And then, we thought she might have been dabbling with a little thing here and there, but didn't think it was too big of a deal. It wasn't occurring on that regular of a basis. But a few years later, when we saw a tank of nitrous that was 2 foot tall, 8 inches in diameter, rolling around the back of our car, we knew we had a serious problem.
And then she's actually been in rehab for nitrous 4 times in a year and a half, correct?
Correct. 3 times before the hospital, and then after the hospital stay, she's back in. She got back in.
Now, she was spending $300 to $800 a day for this, so I want people to understand this is something that gets a powerful grip on someone, and this is a disease, and you say she burned through $10,000 in a fast hurry.
She burned through her life savings from, birthday money since from when she was 2 years old all the way through, Christmas of the year before. She had a good savings. She was a saver. She saved a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm just glad that we finally got with the news on this, and they had a few really good stories on this whole thing, which we were on the front lines of. And a friend of mine reached out to me from high school, said that she saw the story on the news and she wanted to help. And man, I was like, "What? How do you want to help?" And she explained that, she knows these legislators and she dabbles with politics herself. She goes, "I'm going to go ahead and draft this bill for you. And we're going to kind of copy and paste some of the older laws. And we're going to draft this bill for you. And I'm going to show it to one of the representatives here and see what we could do." And I said, "That's great."
And you followed through with this, and in the state of Louisiana, effective August 1st of 24, Act 248 amended a prior law by prohibiting any entity, business, or corporation to produce, manufacture, possess, sell, or otherwise transfer nitrate oxide, also known as poppers, snappers, whippets, etc. Any person or business found in violation of the law may be subject to felony charges that may impose up to 1 year and a $2,500 fine. That's how it reads in part. So you had a huge impact, and this is statewide, correct?
When I saw this container rolling around the back of a car, a big lime green container, I had to educate myself. I looked at the laws that were on the books, and 75% of the law was pertaining to dentistry. These containers have to be under lock and key, administered by an anesthesiologist or a licensed dentist. Every bit that they use out of these containers have to be documented. So, and then I realized that it's like 30% nitrous oxide to the rest oxygen. So a 30-70 split when you're getting a dental procedure. But we have all these laws for dentists when a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old kid can walk in to a gas station and get 100% flavored nitrous oxide right off the shelf.
Yeah, Rachel, you're just shaking your head because it makes so little sense, right?
It's marketed like the vapes are. That's why the chokehold is on vapes. It's honestly disgusting. I mean, you can get it on Amazon and they don't ID you when they deliver it. They ID you for liquor when they deliver it.
Yeah. Well, Greg, it's amazing that you got this done and done fairly quickly. Jenna, are you glad that he did?
Yes, I definitely think that, it played a big role in me getting better. I think at the bottom line, the manufacturers know what they're doing, and they know that they're basically profiting off of people becoming addicted and becoming seriously, ill. And I'm just lucky that I didn't die, but I really hope that, the law can change in other states so that other people could not go through what I went through.
Yeah, it's becoming that this can become a pattern for the rest of the country. Now, if nitrous oxide is so deadly, why is so little known about its misuse in the medical community? We're going to hear why next. Well, joining us now is adult, child, and adolescent psychiatrist Dr. Charles Sophy. He has seen firsthand how dangerous it is when people misuse nitrous oxide. Dr. Sophy, you encountered your first case of this about 6 years ago, I understand. What is up with this nitrous oxide? Why is this flying under the radar?
Well, it's a crazy drug because it's not like alcohol where you get it, and long term, you're not really sure it's going to do anything to you, but you're drunk and you get past it. But with nitrous oxide, it's pretty brutal because it's an insidious, slow onset, easy to get, and then all of a sudden you can't walk. Because what it's doing is eating away the protective sheath or the protective covering around our brain, spinal cord, and all the nerves. So nothing is going to work eventually. Slowly, you don't walk. Slowly, you don't feel. Slowly, you're dropping things. Slowly, you're dizzy. Then you start to have psychiatric symptoms because it's slowly getting to your brain cells and your brain isn't functioning. You can't control anxiety. You can't control your mood. You can't control what you're thinking. You start to hallucinate. So it's slow, but it's insidious. And before you know it, you're stuck, you're paralyzed, you look like you had a stroke, and you can't even answer the door like that young woman couldn't even answer the door to the police to get to the hospital.
Right. So this eats away at the myelin sheath. Is that what you're saying on the nerves? This
Yeah.
eats away at the sheath around the nerves, which keeps the impulses moving down the
Correct.
pathway.
Correct. So then you can't control anything. That's why you feel raw, basically. You can't feel or you're feeling too much. There's no moderation of anything neurologically. You can't control the way you're going to walk or the way you're going to grab something or if you're holding on to something, if you can keep holding it or you're going to drop it. And the other problem with this is, it's so easily accessible at birthday parties for young children. They're taking in balloons that have helium and think it's funny to talk like Mickey Mouse. If you have addiction genetics, you're lighting fires in a lot of people and you don't even know it.
So talk to parents, friends, spouses, whoever. What are signs they should look for if somebody is actually abusing nitrous oxide? What are things they can look for to spot it real quickly?
Anything that looks different than what their usual function is, if their sleep is off, if they're not eating, if you see any of these kinds of tanks, small or large, around, immediately you need a B12 evaluation of your blood because the sooner you get B12 supplemented into your body, the quicker the myelin sheath can start to regenerate and cover your nerves. But the longer you go without myelin, the longer your nerves are raw and it's harder to reproduce it and cover up, plus the damage that's done because the myelin hasn't been covered.
All right. Final thoughts when we come back. Well, we're back, and we've been talking about a silent epidemic that's going on in America. It's being promoted on social media. It's targeting children, not just children, but it is targeting children. Dr. Sophy, if people are watching right now that are using and abusing nitrous oxide, what do they need to do? Obviously, it's stop, but what do they need to do just very quickly in 30 seconds?
First of all, they need to stop and know the danger. And second, go get a blood test immediately. Look at what your B12 levels are so you can replenish if you need to. Immediately do that.
Yeah, and if they get that B12, that's going to help build back everything that they need nerve-wise, and that is the primary treatment for this. Look, I want to thank Dr. Sophy, Rachel, Jenna, and Greg. You three are warriors for this, and you've used your lives here. Thank you for being here tonight. And thanks to you at home for finding us here at Merit TV. We will have even more information about tonight's show on our website, so make sure to log on to drphil.com. And don't forget to check out the all-new Dr. Phil podcast, where you get access to Dr. Phil Primetime along with weekly episodes, where I deliver unfiltered, powerful insights and practical tools to help you navigate today's complex world. You can download and subscribe to that on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or your favorite podcast app. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to us about this important information.